Hello everyone, Josh here with Gotcha Legends, bringing out another Infinite Magicraid video, and today we're going to be doing a versus battle. Now, I did this back when I was playing Awakened Chaos Era. A lot of people seem to enjoy it, so we're going to do it here again today. This time, it's going to be Reeves versus Holder. Who truly is the better option? Who is the better overall unit in terms of what units you compare with them, their support, how far you can go and progress in certain types of content, who performs better in those types of content, etc., etc. Now, quick little backstory before we get into today's video. I have used both units at A5 with multiple dupes invested into them, both on Fearless sets, 5 and 6 star gear. So keep that in mind. We have used both of them at, I would say, pretty peak performance. The only thing I haven't really been able to test is maybe purple and, epic and legend auras. That's like the only thing I haven't really been able to play with for both of them. But since their kits are pretty much needing the same stats for the most part, I would say that that would also kind of really not play into, the results of today's video. So anyways, let's first go ahead and break down both unit skills, their base stats, and then we'll go from there. So let's go over here to our handy dandy notebook, aka the Pokédex, aka the gallery, and see what we got to work with here. So we're not going to go through the actual faction itself, because if we do that, it'll show us the stats at level 80. We want to look at the base stats first. So let's go to our epics, and of course we're going to be searching by attack class heroes. And this will kind of limit our search a little bit, make it a little bit easier. And we'll have counterattack because we know that they both can do that. And then boom, there they are, easy peasy. So Reeves is part of the Dragon Tribe. An Eternal Sect, of course, is where our boy Holder calls home. All right, let's look at Reeves first. Now, we've covered Reeves extensively on this channel. And the reason why I've covered him way more than I ever covered Reeves is because Reeves was already kind of, a known solid unit. Everyone knew that he was a very popular choice. Even in beta, there was just a lot of fanfare around Holder, but not too many people was really ever giving Reeves a second look. They were just kind of glancing over him. People were calling him situational for whatever reason. They were just giving him bad grades on tier list, and it made no dang sense. And so we're gonna go in and break him down real quick yet again, and then we'll go into Holder, and then we'll go to the next set of things that we want to talk about and discuss, and kind of determining who is overall the best choice, because this might open some of your guys and gals' eyes. There's a lot of cool stuff here we're going to go over, so let's get into it. So as you know, Reeves, like Holder, is a bleed unit. He's a counterattack unit. Now, base stats, HP 6,500, attack 780, defense 650, speed 985. He is a red mark unit. So keep that in mind, because that'll be very important later on as well. All right. Skill 1, Rapid Slash, deals 2 stages of 100% attack damage, because of course the skill ups, each to a single enemy with a 20% chance to inflict 1 layer of bleed for 2 turns. Now, the damage will go up an additional 20%, and the bleeds will go from 20% chance to 30. Now, this is going to be his skill 1, which will be used every single time he counterattacks. So that's pretty big, because, being able to do 2 stages of any kind of damage on a skill 1, with each stage having the capabilities of landing a bleed at 30% chance, is very solid. And the damage numbers itself is pretty solid as well. So very good skill 1 for a unit with counterattack. Speaking of counterattacking, on a 4-turn cooldown, he will grant himself counterattack for 3 turns, which is big. 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown is nice. Meanwhile, grant self 25% effect hit for 2 turns. Now, that is extremely important. He is a bleed unit, so he wants to get those dots off. And to get dots off, you need to get, of course, effect hit up. You want to get that effect percentage, well beyond 40% for most stages of the game, especially if you're in, like, the mid to end game. You want to have around 40-50% plus effect hit. This is going to help you achieve that a lot easier without having to force so much of it in gear, which allows you to kind of focus on other stats, improving those even further, like getting more mastery, getting more attack, more crit damage, other stats that Reeves and both Holder, really want to have. So getting that free 25% effect hit up for 2 turns rather is awesome. And that's built into his counterattack as well, which means he's going to be using that on his skill 1 every time he counters. So very, very good. Passive. Now this is where it gets really, really interesting with Reeves. He has a 100% chance to reduce the cooldown of Hack and Slash, which is his ultimate, by the way, by 1 turn each time he casts Rapid Slash. Now, keep in mind, Rapid Slash is his skill 1, and he's going to do that every single time he counters. So, his ultimate, that is a 4-turn cooldown, most times, from my testing anyway, has been more around like a 2-turn, 3-turn max cooldown, for the most part. Sometimes it can even get a little bit lower than that, depending on how many enemies are hitting him in one, full round. So he can really utilize this ultimate quite often, and this ultimate is no joke. So he's going to be doing 5 stages of 100% attack damage, each with a chance to land a bleed for 2 turns. The bleed percentage goes up to 50%, and he picks up a Horrify on the target that has 5 layers of bleed. That's on his exclusive level 2. That is massive. 50% chance to land a bleed 5 times and still doing 500% damage on top of that on a skill that can be somewhat spammed, because you can utilize it multiple times in a fight, more times than you would normally be able to use an ultimate, because of the way his passive works, where he's able to reduce the cooldown with a skill 1, which you're doing a lot of because of his counterattacks. So he is the complete package when it comes to having the ability to do tons of damage and apply dots. And as you guys and gals know, let's go back in here real quick. If you look at bleeds, when you get 10 bleed stacks, that's 1650% damage. Higher than any other dot in the game outside of HP burning on units that have tons of HP. So that is extremely important to keep in mind, the additional damage that you're going to be getting from that. So that's very important, because he's going to be on average, when you get him fully skilled up, you build him up, you get, at least 2 or 3 exclusives into him, which would be ideal, obviously, for any unit you're building up. That's an epic. You're going to be doing, I'd say on average between 1200% to 1650% damage, because you're going to have him floating around that, 7 to 10 bleed mark pretty often on single target enemies, because of his capabilities of being able to reduce the cooldown of his ult, to go in and have another 5 opportunities to inflict more bleeds. His skill 1 also inflicts bleeds with 2 opportunities at 30% chance. I mean, his capabilities to bleed are amazing for an epic. And in terms of epic, he is by far the best bleeder in the game, bar none, because of the fact that he single-handedly can get very high up in the bleed stacks, whereas a lot of other bleed units are going to need assistance. They're going to need multiple bleed units to start getting those stacks up, and he can do that by himself. So he's very incredible when it comes to that. And again, if we look at his exclusives here, his exclusive level 1, which we haven't talked about yet, if there's multiple targets, he also is going to do this, which is awesome. Reeves pursues and attacks a random enemy 1 time after the hero is finishes their action turn for 5 layers of bleed he inflicts. I'm sorry, for every 5 layers of bleed he inflicts. So if he has 5 layers of bleed on one enemy, he's going to go and, pursue another random enemy and attack them, potentially inflicting them with a bleed as well. And that's on top of already doing his counter-attacking, his, stacking of bleeds because of his ult, resetting his ult's cooldown with his skill 1. I mean, the guy is just attacking. And while he's attacking, he's just applying bleed after bleed after bleed, doing tons of damage. So much, in fact, that on like Guild Boss level 3 right now, currently, my main account, Reeves, I can do anywhere between like 11 to 14 million damage. That is insane. Obviously, I need a little bit of luck there, because sometimes if he gets stunned by the boss often, he's going to do a lot less damage. But that goes for any unit that's getting stunned. But if he doesn't get stunned and he's left alone to his own devices for a period of time, he goes off. And it's a beautiful thing to see. So that is Reeves, and he also looks really cool. Now let's get into Holder. Now Holder is a Force Mark hero, bleed, counterattack, and also has AoE damage. Base HP 7150, so higher, a little bit higher than Reeves. Attack 715, a little bit lower than Reeves. Defense 715 and speed 980. So there you guys go with the base stats. Now let's go into skill 1. Deals 2 stages of 100% attack damage, each to a single enemy with a 20% chance to inflict a layer of bleed for 2 turns. So that's pretty much nearly the same thing that Reeves has, except he doesn't have an exclusive to do anything additional with like increasing the chance to bleed or doing additional damage. His exclusives are going to be elsewhere, but if you're talking about just baseline skill 1, they both have pretty much the same base one, or skill 1 rather. All right, next skill. That was Death Storm, 3-turn cooldown, deals 2 stages of 80% attack damage each to all enemies with a 20% chance to inflict a layer of bleed for 2 turns. So he can do a very small AoE for a skill 2. And the reason why I say that is usually if I see an AoE on a skill 2, I'm expecting it to do a lot more damage than that. I mean, it's 160% AoE at the end of the day, but that's for a skill 2 and a very, very low chance to bleed. So it's not like very high, but it can spread the bleeds out to multiple units if it does go off. But again, it is a very low modifier. Let's keep going. Passive. Holder deals 24% more direct damage to any target under bleed status. Now that goes up an extra 20% there via skill up, so 44%. And then at exclusive level 2, if Holder attacks targets under bleed status, the direct damage dealt by Hidden Shadow, which is the passive here, is additionally increased by 5% up to 25% for every layer of bleed the target has. Now, there is one major issue with this passive for a unit like Holder. He does not get very let me rephrase that. He does not get very many bleed stacks to go off. He is not going to go out there and do what Holder is doing when it comes to landing dots. His percentages are way too low, with really no way to increase those percentages. So he's going to be more just going in and doing raw damage, not relying so much on the bleeds. But it's unfortunate because his passive is so good if he could actually get those bleeds to go off consistently. But again, the percentages are so low, and he might be spreading himself a bit too thin with having that skill 2 being an AoE instead of more of like a controlled, single target that has a higher percentage to land the bleed with more damage on it. I think that might benefit him a little bit more than giving him an AoE there, but it is what it is. Ultimate. Holder increases his attack by 20% for 2 turns, meanwhile grants himself counterattack for 3 turns, and that's on a 4-turn cooldown, so pretty similar right now so far to Reeves. Afterwards, he gains 1 more action turn. Now that, of course, makes the cooldown 1 less, because getting a free action turn, that's just how that works, and it's very good. So he's giving himself a counterattack, an attack up 20%, and he gets an additional turn afterwards. So you can basically go into his ult and then into skill 2 or his skill 1 if you'd like, depending on what your cooldown situation is. At exclusive level 3, the duration of counterattack inflicted by Arrogant is extended by 1 turn. So basically he can just have constant counterattack, which is awesome. It's one of his biggest, I would say one of his biggest pluses, one of his biggest benefits is he could just be in constant counterattack, which is great. If self is in attack up status, increases self attack by 40% for 2 turns. So that attack 20% goes up to 40. So he basically gives himself an attack up 2 and constant counterattack, outside of course, exchanging between waves. So very good there for just the raw damage numbers. But again, his skill 1 has no way to increase the chance to land bleed or gain additional damage, which this is where you're going to be utilizing most of your counterattacks from. So that's definitely a problem for Holder, is he just can't inflict very many bleeds. And that has always been my biggest critique of him, as one of his biggest flaws. Now, if we go to his exclusives again, level 1 increases leech rate by 30% when Holder attacks enemies under bleed. So he does have somewhat of a very situational, but he does have a built-in leech mechanic if he's attacking enemies that have bleed status. So if you pair him up with another bleeder, that's going to be great for him because then he's going to be making use of that leech. or if he can somehow land some bleeds of his own, he's going to be able to make use of that as well. But it's not consistent enough to where I would say, okay, guys, you don't need to run him with leech, on your gear because he can do it. No, he does not bleed consistently enough. So you do need to put leech on him, which again is why I say you're going to be running him on Fearless set, just like you're running Reeves on Fearless set. Okay. And then you guys have already seen the other exclusives already. So at the end of the day, when it comes to, at the end of the day, when it comes between Holder and Reeves as what unit is overall better so far, like we haven't gotten into their actual supports yet, which we're going to get into in a moment, which is very, very important for free to plays. If you are free to play, you're going to want to stick around for the next part of this video because it can also play a very big role in deciding on who you really want to build up and utilize, Holder or Reeves, right? And I'm not saying you have to build up either of these units. I'm just saying if you were to choose one and you can only make one A5 right now, given certain circumstances, which one would you go for? That's kind of more or less what this video is for. And I hope that it's very informative and very helpful. I'm trying to be fair and unbiased, but I have used both units, as I said, and there's definitely some tendencies that I see with one that I don't see with the other. And it's a bit of a red flag for me. And I don't think a lot of content creators and other people in general have really brought that point to the forefront as something to keep an eye on going forward, because I've seen a lot of people using one of these units and getting stuck a lot earlier in the game than the other, so just keep that all in mind. But yes, again, so Holder, he's got better counterattacking ability, but half of his kit is involving bleeding that he does not do very well at all. That is his biggest downfall. And because of that, he's not utilizing the massive amount of damage that you can actually get from bleeds. Like I said, you can go as high as 1,650% because you're going to have 10 of those, 10 stacks at 165% damage a pop. That is huge. Holder will never see those numbers unless he's paired up with another bleed unit. But here's the thing, if he's paired with another bleed unit, the bleed damage is split between the units depending on whose bleeds are, going off at one time. So you could have 10 stacks of bleed, but if 7 of those are somebody else's and only 3 are Holder's not going to be maximizing on that damage. The other unit will be. You see what I mean? So Holder as a bleed unit is not very good. I just want to say that, and I know this might not be a popular opinion. People might not want to hear this. This video might be something that you don't want to see, especially if you were told to build up an A5 Holder immediately and you did so. I can see your frustrations, but I'm here to be honest and tell you guys the truth, from seeing these two units in action and what they're capable of. And it's just, at the end of the day, yes, Holder is just not good at inflicting bleeds. He's not. He is not a good bleed unit. Matter of fact, he'd benefit more from his kit if they took the bleed mechanic away from him and just gave him more raw damage. Because, yeah, he's going to be getting 40% for a couple turns. He's going to be getting the constant counter attacks. But really, what you're looking for, because these are very low modifiers on these units, you really want that bleed damage to really go, and tick off. That way you can maximize that attack that you're feeding into him. You can't really do that with Holder. That, again, that's just my biggest issue with him. Whereas with Reeves, he doesn't have a built-in leech, but he's still going to be running the Fearless set anyways. And he doesn't have a built-in attack up, but he does have a capabilities of going in and just bleed. Constant bleeds. And he can spam his ultimate, which in my opinion is amazing because it's literally 5 chances at 50% chance to land a bleed for 2 turns and do 500% damage. So yes, he doesn't have any AoE capabilities, but guess what? He don't need them because he's attacking everybody off of his counters anyways, and he's also doing much more raw damage to single target enemies, and then when the bleed stacks go off, he's killing enemies at a faster rate and more consistently. So he's doing the more consistent damage, the bigger damage, and he doesn't even have the attack buff. He doesn't have constant counterattacks, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference because he's already doing what you need him to do, and that's go in and kill things that he hits at a better, more efficient rate, which means more survivability for your team overall, including himself, and he's going to be self-efficient because of the Fearless set, which again, Holder will be wearing as well. And he doesn't have to rely on bleeds going off to do any of these additional things. He's just going to do it by default. His kit works out of the gate and consistently. There is no situational BS with this guy. I don't know where people got situational from with him. So, little mini rant there, but I have seen that where people are like, oh, Reeves a bit situational, isn't he? Where is he situational? He's going to do damage everywhere. And the fact that he's getting effect hit up too for his kit, that's even better. That's less that I have to worry about when I stat him up, which is great. So that is Reeves versus Holder so far. But before we get out of here, as I mentioned, if you're free to play, this part is going to be very important. There's another couple factors. When you're building up a unit to A5, there's a couple things that you want to look forward to. You want to be able to eventually build up their auras, and you of course want to start building through the Tower of Mark, because that's going to get you your Catherine, some other various rewards, get you through the campaign missions. There's a lot of value in being able to beat out, of course, the Tower of Mark. But to do the Tower of Mark, you need a mono team. To do the faction Abyss for your auras, all your units have to be part of the same faction. So there's one big support, I would say, for both these units that you can find within their own factions. But only one of those units are also a part of the same mark, which is very, very important. And we know who that unit is. I'm sure a lot of you already know. So if we take this off and we go to epics, actually, no, let's do it this way. This will look a little bit better. So we know that Holder is a part of Eternal Sect. Let's go into Eternal Sect. So let's look in here. Okay, so his best, more or less free to play option is going to be, oh, didn't mean to click that. It's going to be Poseidon. Poseidon is an amazing buffer. His skill 2 is going to jack Holder up to new heights. He's going to give him an attack up 2, which he doesn't necessarily need because he does have it built into his kit if you have him already exclusived up. But just in case, you got an attack up 2, you have the crit rate up 2, and the crit damage up 2. So this is going to be huge. The problem I have, though, is even using this on Holder isn't going to be all that super beneficial because Holder doesn't have a strong single target attack or a big AoE nuke. He's still built around the whole philosophy of counterattack, 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 which is fine. He's good at it. Both units are great at that, honestly. So it's not that big of a deal, but this would definitely by far probably be one of his better supports to run with him in terms of being in his same faction. That's a free-to-play option because he also has Severe Wound in his kit. He's got a great buff there. So Poseidon is an amazing buffer. I just don't know if he's going to be amazing for Holder as much as what the other support's going to be for Reeves. Poseidon and Dario, that'll be another video, by the way. I really want to give Dario some love. I feel like he deserves it. We're going to go into that, but that's definitely probably the best faction support that you can get for Holder. And the only problem, though, is you can't run them together in Tower of Mark because one's a Force Mark and one's a Blue Mark. So Holder's going to have to go elsewhere for that. He's going to have a unit for faction. He's going to have different units for the for Tower of Mark. And that's just going to mean you're going to have to stretch your resources even more thin as a free-to-play. So keep that in mind as well when you're choosing Holder. Now, Holder does have Lester. He has Liz. He has some other strong Force Mark epics that you can run with him for the Tower of Mark. But again, Poseidon is probably his best direct support in his own faction. I just wanted to make that clear, in his faction. I'm not saying that's the best support for Holder in the game, just in his faction as an epic. All right. So if we go to Dragon Tribe, though. Now, Dragon Tribe, this is a whole different ball game. Dragon Tribe has, who? It has our boy Whim, who I already told you guys is the best epic hero in the game. And he's free to play because you get him from the battle order currently available right now in the game. At, I believe it was level 40 of the battle order, you pick him up, you get a free copy of Whim. So you even get him for free to go along with your Reeves. And the crazy thing is, they're both Red Mark heroes, and they're both part of the same tribe, the Dragon Tribe. So they can be both used together in the faction Abyss for your auras, and they can both be used together in your Tower of Mark. And since Whim is so versatile as a tank because of his massive shields, and later on with auras, as we discussed in his video, you can also make him an amazing healer. Whim is just overall pound for pound the best epic in the game, and you're pairing that up with Reeves, who we've already talked about how good he is. So the combination of those two is amazing. And that's going to carry you so far in a game, and it's going to save you a lot of resources because now you have a strong support in both your faction and your Tower of Mark with your carry, your DPS Reeves. You cannot say the same about Holder. And again, we've already talked about the whole situation with, you know, Holder not even being able to apply bleeds at a very good rate compared to Reeves, and it kind of destroys half his kit, whereas Reeves is able to fully utilize it. So I don't know, guys. I know it's kind of sounding a little bit one-sided here, but I'm just sharing my experience, my information with you guys and gals out there. And I know this might not be what you want to hear, but I feel like it's something that you need to hear. Overall, between these two units, Reeves is better than Holder in nearly every type of content. There might be some content here and there that maybe Holder can go in and do something in, but I just don't see it. I see Reeves outperform Holder in every content I've ever used both them in, both Guild Boss, story campaign, obviously within the Dwarven Ruins, all the artifacts dungeons, the gear dungeons, the Tower of Marks. I see a lot of people that are always, you know, posting on social media or even in comments like, yo man, I got a Holder team, I'm like, and I'm stuck on 19. I'm stuck on like Tower 18, 19. Well, Reeves and Whim got me through Tower 21. I'm on 22 now, and I can do almost 30% of that boss. So that just goes to show a very well built up Reeves is just going to outperform a very well built up Holder. And even in PvP, when I always had them on a one-on-one fight, Holder just did not stand a chance. I stacked all those bleeds, and he melted like that. So let me know what you guys and gals think in the comment section below. Did I change anybody's minds or opinions? Did I give you guys a little bit more insight in these two units? Open your eyes a little bit? I don't know. Let me know all that and more in the comment section below. Who is your winner overall and why between Reeves and Holder? And I'll be sure to try and read as many of those as I can in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to get notifications. Join the Discord in description below as always. And of course, drop a like here on the channel. Help our little blue dragon buddy Gio out. Get him nice and fat before winter. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.